As I clean up my refrigerator from a 3-day power outage, I'm really thinking a lot about the guiltiest declutter I have ever faced that I never once gave thought to until now. Ooh, oh dear. Full of water.
Oh, God.
And then we have the
bag? The ice.
Yeah,
the
bag
was
drawer.
the ice.
The drawer.
Oh, okay.
It's full of water.
I'll empty it out.
And things I should have put in the outside to be frozen. On Christmas Eve, my daughter Yvonne and I headed out to do our last-minute grocery shop. I had a good list in hand. I was feeling happy that she was there to help me because I do tend to agonize over decisions. And we were out there getting everything that we would need for the next couple of days so that I could give my family a really nice Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with all their favorite treats and meals. While we were there and my grocery cart was 2/3 of the way full, I got a text from my husband saying that we had just lost power. We were having a big rainstorm with lots of high winds, and I know that there were people across the country. I know in the South you guys were dealing with really record-breaking frigid temperatures. I know others were dealing with snow, but for us here in Maine, it was rain. If you're new to my channel, I have 7 children. So my oldest is living in Alabama with his wife and 2 children, and they were due to come home for Christmas this year. This was going to be a year where all 7 of my kids and their families were going to be home for Christmas, but an unexpected hip surgery for my 2-year-old granddaughter kept them home. And then I have a son who lives about an hour away, and he was planning to be here with his wife, and he was. And then I have a college son who is in North Carolina, and he was also home. So 6 out of 7 of my children and also a daughter-in-law were planning to be here with us for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Even though I got that text saying that our power was out, I really was only expecting it to be out for a few hours tops. I also knew that I had some big ice blocks down in my basement freezer, and I knew that I could use those to create an old-fashioned icebox in my refrigerator, so I really wasn't that worried about buying the food that we needed for Christmas. I will say that the one blessing is I was feeling very tired and burnt out. My mother-in-law had passed away on December 21st, and there's been a lot lately that we have gone through as a family, and I was just feeling the exhaustion from preparing Christmas and getting all the gifts ready, all the things that I know every mom faces. The day that you're watching right now is Monday, the day after Christmas, after we had gotten our power restored. I had promised to take the teenagers to an escape room, and so while they were getting ready, I was trying to get what I could out of the fridge, at least the stuff that was smelly. And so that whole power restoration Christmas night is a whole nother story, but I was just cleaning up my kitchen, getting the dishes going so that the dishwasher could run while we were gone. And that was really all I was able to do on that day. And then the next day, here I am, I'm getting my laundry started. You know, it doesn't really matter what you're going through. The dishes, the laundry, there's just certain things that need to be done. And of course, the kitchen was a mess again. So I'm getting that cleaned up because I am planning to finish off the fridge, get it all wiped down and wiped out. I had those ice blocks in there. They had melted and I hadn't noticed. We had cleaned it up, put them in dishes so they wouldn't continue melting throughout the refrigerator because we had seen water on the floor, but I didn't realize it had filled up the drawers that I keep my cheese and meats in. That was what you saw at the beginning of the video. So this was just a mess from start to finish. So back to Christmas Eve, I got home and my daughter-in-law texted me and asked how we were doing. And honestly, because they live on a main road, I had not even considered the fact that they might have lost power too. So I asked her back how she was doing. And she told me that my son was at work because they were planning to come over that evening when he got out of work. And she was in the apartment, no heat. And by this time, it was really getting cold outside. And so I suggested that she come over and spend the day with us. And so I went down to pick her up and brought her back with us so that my son could come after work and then they could go home in one car. I mean, don't you just hate it when you are an hour away from home and you're in two cars and you have to follow each other home? I know I do. And I'm so glad that we went and picked her up because as it turned out, they did not get their power restored. And so my son went by their apartment when he got out of work, got them some clothes for overnight, and also got their Christmas present so they could do their Christmas tree here in the morning with us. I was really thankful that I had decided I wanted to cook as little as possible because at least I had cold sandwiches that I could serve for supper, and we had some salad stuff. I also had picked up a veggie tray and a fruit tray, so we were able to pull all of that out and just start our Christmas feasting earlier than I planned. But I just was so thankful that at least, I feel like it was a God thing that He had just put that in my heart to go ahead and get cold things and not to cook so much. My son and daughter-in-law got their power back. It was Christmas Day. I think maybe it was early afternoon. I can't really remember. And my kids had gone there to get their stuff charged, to take some showers, while my husband and I stayed home because we were using space heaters. And of course, you can't leave those unattended. And we were very concerned about our pipes freezing because it just kept getting colder and colder. Honestly, this would have been the place where I would have inserted pictures from our Christmas for you to see, but would you believe I did not take one picture of Christmas or opening presents or any of that? I was just kind of in survival mode, and while the time around the tree was still very nice and the presents were wonderful, I mean, I had gotten my daughters an Xbox to share, and of course I couldn't use it because we didn't have any power. It just was one of those days, but you know, we still very much enjoyed our time together and huddling around the kerosene heater. At night, we would keep it going as late as possible, and then my husband would set an alarm to get up super duper early, like 3 in the morning, turn it on, and I'm up for the day by, 4 in the morning, especially when I'm stressed. I'm usually up for the day, definitely by 5, but, if I have any stress at all in my life, I'm definitely up by 4. There quite honestly was not a lot of sleeping going on. We had Francois in the living room because he couldn't sleep in my office, which is normally where his bedroom is, and we usually put a heater out there. We had my daughter-in-law and my son in my present office, which is the room with the cathedral ceiling. And so Sunday night we got our power back, and the oil heat, because we have forced hot water, we could hear it starting and stopping and starting and stopping, and the house was getting colder because we had shut off the space heaters, and we realized that we had a frozen pipe, and it was out in my office. That's a 3-season porch. We had put the oil heat out there, which we really regret because it never did make a very big difference in the temperature of the house. And then it's just not insulated enough out there. There's no foundation. So there's always a danger of freezing. And sure enough, it had frozen. So my husband was out there thawing out the pipe with a blow dryer. And of course, we hear, "Help, help." And so my son Fran ran out there, and there was water squirting. And so Fran ran and shut the furnace off. And of course, we had a burst pipe. So we decided to call the furnace company. We had just had a brand new furnace installed like 2 weeks ago. So we called this company, and they said, "We'll be there in 45 minutes. I mean, we really were just calling so that we could say we did it, but we didn't actually think they would come. And so we were so relieved when they were willing to come, and they put a bypass in so that there's no oil heat running to that room anymore, no forced hot water. That took care of the problem. We're not planning to re-hook it up at all. So I had put boxes of food, things that could be frozen or were from our freezer, in these boxes, and I had put them outside because it was running like 17 degrees out there. So anything that I didn't think would be damaged by freezing, I put out there, but I'm honestly just trying to keep the house running at the same time. So here I am taking a break to switch over that laundry that you saw me put in at the beginning of the day. So you saw all that was in those boxes, but then look at my refrigerator. Look at how full that is. There's 0 in the freezer. I had completely emptied the freezer, wiped it all down. I had taken any meats out of the refrigerator, put them in the box. Now, when we got power back, I will say Sunday night, I took some things out of the boxes that were outside and I did put them back in the refrigerator. So those things were fine, but I never touched any of the sauces or condiments. And then there's vegetables in there, and they already were, well, obviously, you know, you can't freeze lettuce or let lettuce freeze. So the lettuce, the cucumbers, you know, there were certain vegetables, green peppers, red peppers, and of course, anything on the doors and on that top shelf I hadn't even bothered with. As I'm going about my work and trying to salvage what I can, but at the same time, we do have a lot of anxiety in the house over spoiled food. We have a lot of sensitive stomachs in the house, and so I do tend to err on the side of getting rid of things when they are expired or if there's any danger of spoilage, because not only do we have very sensitive stomachs, but we also have some people in our home who really struggle with anxiety, and specifically food anxiety and is this clean enough anxiety with toothbrushes. I mean, it really doesn't matter whether it's a food or a toothbrush or the bathroom. We do have people that are in our home that really struggle with anxiety, and some of it is focused in these areas. So I will say, just expect to see me throw away things that you might have kept. I mean, it's just where we are, and it honestly isn't worth somebody feeling like what they're eating isn't safe or questioning if that stomach ache is from something that I kept or if it was just going to happen anyway. I'm getting everything wiped down, and I chose to use my Method degreaser. I probably did have some anti-bac somewhere, but I thought, well, a degreaser would be nice and strong, so that is what I opted to use. And so here I am emptying sauces down the drain, and I just had a very large aha moment as I was going through all of our sauces and condiments. I mean, a lot of things I understand why we have it. Things like chicken broth, beef broth, vegetable broth, I can't even say it. And then tamari is a pretty big staple in our home. So those things I completely understand why I have. But there were a lot of sauces and condiments in there that we probably bought for a special recipe. We used it once, and then you just don't feel like you should throw it away because it's food and there's nothing wrong with it, and you think, well, maybe we'll use it again, but you never actually use it again. As a little break in my story, I'm putting things in the freezer. These were the things from the boxes from outside. So everything here was frozen solid, and I wasn't worried at all about it because when I put this stuff outside, temperatures were already dropping and it was well below freezing. There were a couple things I did get rid of. I got rid of some salmon and some tilapia because I just felt like fish is so delicate. I didn't want to take any chances. So I already have one box empty, which does feel good. You might be able to sense my harriedness, if that's a word, because here I was cleaning out the top shelf of all the sauces, and now here I am stocking the freezer. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, except I really wanted to get things cleaned out of the fridge. I still felt like it was a little smelly, but at the same time, I didn't want everything to melt that I had put on the island because my husband had graciously brought those boxes in for me, so I decided to take a break from the fridge cleaning and clean out the boxes. I put the things that were from the freezer away, and then there were also a box full of things that go in the refrigerator. That stuff was also frozen, but I knew it could thaw out a little bit since it was not supposed to be stored frozen. Then once I had done that, I felt like I could go back to the refrigerator again. I have to say I was super thankful that I have liners down on my shelves. I was thankful I have the Lazy Susans in there. It does make cleanup a lot easier, especially when you have a power outage. Sometimes things start leaking that you might have missed. It might be some meat. For me, it was those ice blocks getting out of control and just wetting everything. But it was just so much easier to pop a liner or a Lazy Susan in the sink and wipe it down and put some soapy water in it and then dry off the clean shelves with a towel than it would have been if I just had the shelving with no other things like liners and Lazy Susans on them. Back to the sauces and the condiments that we buy maybe for 1 or 2 recipes, and then we have all of this left over. It presents a problem because there's so much guilt involved in decluttering food. I think way more guilt than even decluttering a gift that somebody gave you. I feel like it's even more guilt than a sentimental declutter when you're getting rid of things of someone who's passed. I just think that as a culture, we have settled with the fact of you should get rid of things that are gifts that you don't use anymore. Everybody understands the sentimental thing. I mean, there may be people within your family or someone who gave you the gift that could be initially offended, but when you declutter food, it is a societal, cultural guilt, because you know there are people in the world that don't have enough, and you feel badly that you are throwing away something that is a valuable resource that others can't have. As a side note here, if you don't know what I'm doing, I am testing out my eggs. I'm putting them in water. And we have read that if they float, that means they're not good to eat. But if they stay at the bottom, then they are safe. It's something that I have really been thinking about since doing this refrigerator declutter. One of the things my husband and I have talked about is to make sure when we are making a new recipe and we need to get a sauce that's a little bit out of the ordinary, that even if we do spend a little bit more per ounce, that we're going to buy the smallest container possible, because we just don't foresee that particular sauce becoming a staple in our home. And then if it becomes a staple in our home, why, we can always buy a bigger container the next time. Then you might find out that you have a health issue that you didn't know you had. Maybe you end up finding out you have high blood pressure, and so you're not going to eat canned goods anymore. You're not going to eat things that are salty anymore, and you have those stocked up in your home. Maybe you find out that you have a high glucose number, and you need to eat low carb, and now you have all kinds of stored frozen bread and doughs that are frozen. Maybe it's even you have stored up some meals. You were doing the cook in a month meal plan, where you were cooking up everything for the month and then storing it in the freezer. And now you have found out that all the pasta dishes are something that you cannot eat. And there's really not a whole lot we can do about that. I know as a health coach, after the holidays, it's very hard for people who are on a health plan. They have cooked and prepared foods that their family would love. That is something they cannot eat. And then the company did not want to take those foods home with them. Here you are with all of these leftovers. You don't want to throw them away. But quite honestly, if you're giving your body something it does not need, you're using your body as a trash can. You feel too guilty to throw it in the trash, but you will throw it in your body. And now your body has to work extra hard to deal with it. If you have high glucose, high A1C, and you're eating the pie because you feel bad to throw it away, now you're causing health problems. You're going to have to spend more money at the doctor's office. You're potentially going to have to spend money on medications. And honestly, it is just not worth it. I have to say, I have never seen anyone deal with food decluttering. All the decluttering channels, I don't notice them talking about food. Little side note here, I found something sticky in the back. Isn't that gross? Some kind of sauce or something. But anyway, I digress. I really think it's something to be thinking about. It's something I'd like to handle here at This Mainer Mom a little bit more, is food waste and food decluttering. And there is a time to throw food away. And I just would like you to open yourself up to looking through your pantry, looking through your refrigerator, and seeing what is the food that no longer serves you. Of course, if you have canned goods, if you have things that haven't been opened and they're still good, then you can donate those to a food pantry. If you have ingredients that are open that you could cook something for, perhaps you could make up some meals for someone that you know that would bless them, a neighbor or a friend, someone who's had illness. Those are always ways that we can redeem those things. But I would just like to open you up to thinking about the fact that sometimes you do have to waste food by getting rid of it because it's not healthy for you, it's not serving you, it is spoiled. There's just a lot of reasons, and I think it's important to go ahead and do that and to release yourself from the guilt. As sad as I am that we had to throw so much food away, I have to admit to feeling some great relief as I put the refrigerator back together and it's so empty. It was so overcrowded before, and I really hope I can turn over a new leaf. I think after 2020, we really were into more of the stockpiling and keeping foods that were shelf stable so that if we ever had shortages again, that we would not be as rocked by it. And I am not judging anyone who feels like they need to keep a stockpile, but I know for me, this storm, I already was thinking about it. I was talking to you guys about it, how I didn't want to keep extra food down in my basement because I would often forget about it. And this storm has just confirmed to me that even things that are in my freezer aren't safe unless I have a reliable way to keep those things on when I have a storm. And right now, I don't. I would love to have a generator that plugs directly into my electrical box so that it picks up when we lose power. I don't have that. I don't know if I'm going to have that in the future. So for now, I'm just going to have to trust God that if there was a shortage again, that we would be able to find things that we could eat, even if they weren't all of our favorite things. I'd love to know your thoughts on food decluttering down in the comment section below. How do you feel about it? What's your guilt level? Do you feel comfortable to throw away food or get rid of food that is no longer serving you? I think even if you disagree with me as I talk in the coming days ahead, I think it's important to be thinking through it. And if I even do offend you, I apologize, but I feel like there's value in even sparking the thoughts in your mind, even if you disagree, because this look in my refrigerator brings me so much more peace that I am not overrun with food. And I think a lot of times when I have company, I want to have every single thing they could possibly want. And I really need to move toward shopping more often. I'll have more of my refrigerator pantry declutters up there if you would like to watch more. And I would love to see you over there. And remember, as always, that God loves you and I love you too. And I can't wait to see you next time.